let's talk about how you should price your products so that you can maximize your profits so that you can be successful in this episode. So being profitable is so important for any business, but especially a product-based business, because you have high material costs, you are going to be, paying more for ethical manufacturing. And so we need to be really diligent and we need to be very intentional about how you're pricing your products so that you still have enough money left at the end of the day to continue to do your brand. A lot of brands suffer and they actually end up fizzling out and closing down because they weren't profitable. And so I don't want that to be you. Let's talk about how you can be profitable from the get-go. And the first way you can do that is by having that intention and having the mindset to begin with. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but the only way you can be more profitable is either by increasing your revenue through increasing your price points and or selling more quantities, or reducing your costs. That's it, right? That's how you have more money left at the end of the day. You either make more or you spend less, essentially. In an ideal world, you would be able to do both. So I want you to be able to increase your prices, sell more quantities, but also at the same time, be mindful about cost savings as well. That is really how you can be as profitable as possible. And so let's talk about pricing your products so that you can maximize profits. When it comes to costs, there's a few things I want you to do. I want you to try to save as much as possible, but I do not want you to skimp out on a few things. You should not skimp out on your design. You obviously want to make sure it's high quality. You also should not be skimping out on your materials because you want those to be high quality, conscious, sustainable, long lasting, all that stuff. And of course, you don't want to be skimping out on your manufacturing as well because you want to make sure it's high quality, it's ethical, it's aligned with your values. So those are all things you're not skimping out on. However, what you can do is be smart about your costs. So let's say when it comes to your designs, you have hired your pattern maker to make a dress, let's say. Well, for the next collection, you could be strategic and actually take that pattern, slice it in half, and then you have a top and you have a skirt, right? Like there's things you can do to reuse your patterns, and that's just one example. Another thing you can do too is leverage your designer to talk to you about how you can save costs when it comes to material and production. So what can you do to achieve the same effect, same quality and everything like that, but save time on production? Like there's some things you can do typically in the design process to make your manufacturer's life easier, to make it so that you can cut your materials better so that there's less wastage. Like really think about that instead of just being like, I don't want to pay for a good designer. A good designer will actually save you more costs in the long run. And that's just an example. Another example is instead of trying to cut costs with your manufacturers, try to work with them to understand what their process is and see how you can work more efficiently with them, how you can help them to speed up the process. Like really try to be creative versus just being like, I'm going to slash the hourly wage or I don't want to pay you as much. Like really try to think creatively and work with them so that you can try to save costs. And so once you know what your product costs are, and this is key, you cannot stick your head in the sand. You need to know what every single piece of garment is going to cost you. I then want you to mark it up at least 40 to 60% so that you can have that 40 to 60% margin. That's the price you're going to charge. And I think a lot of the times people look at that price and they're like, oh my God, it's so high. Like compared to fast fashion brands, it's so much higher. Are people actually going to pay for this? And then they kind of spiral. But I want you to know that as a sustainable fashion brand, it is normal to have higher price points. And I teach this in my Launch Your Brand course. I actually have an entire financial spreadsheet formula to spit out exactly what you should be pricing your products at. But throughout that entire course, I also teach you marketing and sales strategies so that you can actually increase the quantity sold. You can actually make those sales and make more money. It's not really just a pricing thing. Like you can charge whatever you want to charge. Like Chanel is out here increasing their handbags year over year and people are still buying it. It's not a price thing. It's more of a value thing. And you being able to communicate that value to your customer. That is the thing you should be stressing out about and how you're going to do that. Figure out your costs, try to lower them as much as possible, and then add that 40 to 60% markup. And whatever that price is, that's what you're going to charge. That is okay. Don't hyperventilate. You're going to be able to make sales, and it really just boils down to your marketing, your branding, and your sales strategy. That's it. Because again, like I mentioned, like people will pay for expensive things. People are out there buying all sorts of designer things or things they don't even really need. And so in your case, you're being really intentional about the product you're creating. You're solving a pain point, you're solving a problem. All that's going to be amazing. And so what you need to double down on is your marketing, is your sales, and your branding. And so if you want to dive deeper into marketing and sales strategies, how to build a community that will buy from you at launch, if you haven't already gone and taken my How to Launch a Profitable Sustainable Fashion Brand Masterclass, then you need to go and do it. It is absolutely free, and I keep saying that I should be charging for it because honestly I've gotten feedback that this is like super helpful and I should be charging for it, but I'm not going to because I want to keep it accessible to people. But in this masterclass, I break down how to create a product that people actually want to buy, how you can source sustainable materials and ethical manufacturers, and last but not least, how you build that community of customers that are willing to buy from you. Because if you think back to the last thing you bought that was maybe a little bit pricey, you thought about it a little bit, you still pulled the trigger, it's likely because of the sales, the marketing, and the branding behind it. And so if that company was able to get you to buy, you can also get someone else to buy. So just think about it that way. You can always look at other premium brands and see what they did. A few podcast episodes back, I also talked about how you can build a premium brand from scratch. So I highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode as well. But at the end of the day, charge what you need to charge and then work on your branding, your marketing, and sales strategies to make those sales. I do not want you to only add like a 10 or 20% markup to your product. Like that's the willingness to pay. I feel like I can only charge that much. Like that's really going to hold you back. And I don't want you to be one of those brands that fizzle out because you don't have enough profits and you don't have enough cash in the bank. So charge what you need to charge, try to keep costs low as much as possible, and then figure out your marketing, sales, and branding strategies so that you can actually sell quantities, move units, and be as profitable as possible. I hope this was helpful for you, and together, let's transform the harmful fashion industry.